The world government's version of God Valley is basically a superhero movie. Good guys punch bad guys, world gets saved, everyone cheers. But the real story is more like a tragedy, where the actual hero gets completely ignored. While Garp and Roger were having their legendary team-up moment, Kuma was playing the role of the quiet saviour that nobody talks about. Imagine being the guy who actually saved the most lives, but getting zero credit because you weren't throwing flashy punches. While everyone talks about the epic battle, nobody asks why children were even at God Valley in the first place. The Marines paint this picture of legendary warriors clashing for the fate of the world, but they skip over the most disturbing part. God Valley wasn't some random battleground where pirates and Marines happened to meet. It was a hunting ground designed specifically for the Celestial Dragon's twisted entertainment. Every 3 years, the world nobles held what they called a native hunting competition. They'd pick an island, release slaves and local residents, then hunt them down like animals for sport. The winner got powerful devil fruits as prizes. They even broadcast this sick game live to other world nobles. God Valley was just the latest location for their twisted tournament. The Celestial Dragons brought child slaves to this island specifically as targets for their hunting game. These kids weren't collateral damage from some battle between pirates and Marines. They were the main event. The world nobles wanted easy targets to rack up points, and what's easier than terrified children who can't fight back? St. J. Garcia Saturn was there, Figureland Garling was there. They turned human lives into a point system where each kill added to their score. The official story completely erases these kids from existence and never mentions the hunting competition. Most fighters at God Valley had one thing on their minds: proving they were the strongest. Roger wanted to stop Rocks from becoming too powerful. Garp wanted to take down Roger. The Rocks pirates wanted to overthrow the current system and replace it with their own rule. Everyone had these grand political motivations, but Kuma's motivation was simpler and more immediate. He saw scared kids who were about to die for someone else's entertainment. He knew what it felt like to be someone's property. He understood the terror these children were experiencing because he'd been in their position before. The paw fruit could have been the most destructive weapon at God Valley, but Kuma used it for the exact opposite. Think about what this devil fruit can actually do. The Nikyu Nomi lets you repel anything you touch with those paw pads on your hands. Air, pain, memories, even people themselves. You can launch someone across the ocean or create shockwaves that level buildings. Most fighters would turn this into the ultimate offensive weapon. Every other devil fruit user at God Valley was focused on destruction and domination. The Rocks pirates were using their powers to tear apart everything in their path. Whitebeard was probably creating earthquakes that could sink islands. Big Mom was unleashing her soul-powered homies to crush enemies. Even the Marines and world government agents were using their abilities to fight and control. But Kuma made a completely different choice with his reality-bending abilities. Instead of using the paw fruit to join the combat, he turned it into a rescue tool. The same power that could send enemies flying became his method for mass evacuation of helpless victims. He could touch a terrified child and instantly teleport them away from danger. One moment they're hiding from celestial dragon hunters. The next they're safe on another part of the island or even off God Valley entirely. This rescue work took a serious physical and emotional toll on Kuma. Every person he saved drained his strength, because using his devil fruit powers constantly is exhausting. The mental pressure of knowing that one mistake could mean someone's death must have been crushing, but he kept going anyway. The scale of his rescue operation was massive. Kuma moved dozens of people to safety, one by one, during that chaotic battle. Some sources suggest he helped evacuate around 500 slaves total, working with Ivankov and Ginny. This required more precision and care than any punch Garp or Roger threw that day. Fighting is actually pretty simple when you're that strong. You see an enemy, you hit them, they go down. But rescue work means you have to be gentle with scared, injured people while staying alert for threats. You have to make split-second decisions about where to send each person to keep them safe. One wrong move and you could accidentally hurt the people you're trying to help. Kuma turned a weapon into a tool of salvation. This moment revealed Kuma's true character that would define his entire life. God Valley wasn't a one-time thing for Kuma. It was just the beginning of a pattern that would consume his entire life. That moment when he chose to save slaves instead of joining the legendary battle established something fundamental about who he was. Most people would have used God Valley as their claim to fame. They tell stories about fighting alongside Roger or trading blows with the Rock's pirates, but Kuma's takeaway was completely different. He learned that his real purpose was protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. The tragic irony is that Kuma's greatest acts of heroism always happened in shadows, while everyone else got the spotlight. After God Valley, the world celebrated Garp as the hero of the Marines. Roger's involvement got erased from history, but people still knew he was at this legendary battle. Meanwhile, Kuma's rescue of hundreds of slaves never made it into any official records. The world nobles weren't about to admit that their precious hunting competition got sabotaged by someone who actually cared about human lives. Joining the Revolutionary Army was another massive sacrifice that people don't talk about enough. Kuma risked everything to fight against the same systematic oppression he'd experienced as a slave. This wasn't some political statement or quest for power. He was putting his life on the line to prevent other people from going through what he went through. The Revolutionary Army operates in secret, which means no recognition or glory for their work. They're labelled as terrorists by the world government, so joining them meant accepting a life of being hunted and hated. But Kuma's ultimate sacrifice makes everything else look small in comparison. When his daughter Bonnie got sick with the sapphire disease that would kill her, Kuma made a deal with the world government that destroyed his entire existence. He agreed to become inspiration for a pacifista, which meant giving up his humanity, his memories, and his free will. They turned him into a cyborg weapon that followed orders without question. He endured years of painful experiments and modifications, slowly losing pieces of himself until nothing was left. Think about what that actually means. Kuma chose to become a mindless robot so his daughter could live. He knew he'd forget her face, forget their time together, forget why he even made this choice in the first place. But he did it anyway because her life mattered more than his identity. The man who saved hundreds of people at God Valley ended up sacrificing his own soul to save one more person. Roger became the Pirate King and inspired a new generation of pirates. Garp earned his hero title, but Kuma became a forgotten weapon that most people assumed was just another government tool. His consistent pattern of choosing others' well-being over personal glory never earned him fame or recognition. He spent his entire life making sacrifices that nobody would remember or appreciate. This raises one question in my mind. Who are the other true heroes in One Piece that we don't know of? In One Piece, true heroism isn't about winning fights or gaining fame. It's about choosing to save the powerless when nobody's watching. Kuma proved this at God Valley and throughout his entire life. He rescued hundreds of slaves, while legends battled for glory. He sacrificed his humanity to save his daughter. He joined a revolution to protect people he'd never meet. The One Piece world celebrates Roger and Garp because their victories are easy to understand. Punch hard, win fights, become legends. But Kuma's heroism required something harder than strength. It required choosing gentleness in a world that rewards violence. Speaking of violence, if you fancy learning how Garp would have turned out had he fully leaned into his violent nature, check out this video. As always, thank you for watching.